Hey guys, Joe Miles here with ICO Gear and the Mission Whitetail podcast. Obviously we've got some cellular cameras in front of us here, and that's the next test that we're going to do. You know, cellular cameras, whether you love them, hate them, think it's ethical, unethical, it's a tool that a lot of guys are using. We use them. It gives you a big advantage, and until they're outlawed, you know, we'll continue using them. It's a great tool that gives you a lot of real-time information, and so they definitely changed the game. There's a lot of variety to pick from. You know, right here we've got the Spartan Ghost camera that retails for roughly $420. We've got the Exodus Render, which is about the $330 price range. So these are more of the high-end, more expensive cameras. Then we've got the Tactacam Reveal, which is, I think they're around 150 bucks, depending on the sale and whatever they're running. And then we've got the Multi Delta Base, which is around $120, $130. So these are more of the inexpensive type cellular cameras. And you know, we're going to test them out and see if the money is really worth it to pay for these higher end cameras. You know, for me, from a personal standpoint and how I look at these cameras, the ability of them to actually take the picture is the most important thing to me. It's got to have a good range, meaning it'll trigger at far distances. It's got to really have a quick trigger speed, because some of these big deer you may only get one picture of them, so the trigger speed has got to be there. You don't want to be getting a whole bunch of blank pictures, you know, it triggering after the deer's walk through the frame. And it's got to have real reliable text capabilities or cellular capabilities, meaning if you get one of these cameras into a place that, you know, the cell service is not perfect, it's still got to function and get those pictures to you. So those are the most important things to me when looking at these cameras, and that would definitely make the money for a higher end camera more worth it. If it's taking pictures at a farther distance, if the trigger speed is faster, and if the reliability of the cell system is getting the pictures to you in real time and getting them to you quick, then the money for the higher, more expensive cameras, to me, would be worth it. Other things you got to look at in testing these things out is the quality of the picture. You know, how well the pictures come through you know, right at first light, right at last light, at night, obviously during the day. If there's moisture, you know, how do the lenses do when there's moisture in the air, when it's rain or there's a heavy dew? Are you getting quality pictures? So that's stuff that we will be testing. This is going to be a pretty in-depth test, but I think it's important because, you know, personally, I haven't seen a lot of these tests on the internet, on YouTube, and that's something that we really wanted to do because we want to know what's the best. And I mean, if you can get $150 camera to do the same thing that a $400 camera, I mean, you can be running two of these for the cost of one of these. So that's what we want to test and find out, because we have heard good things about all of these cameras. Battery life is something, you know, you got to pay attention to, and which one's going to drain the batteries the most. You know, some of them use 12 batteries, some are using 8, and so it'll be interesting to see which one's battery life lasts the longest. The ease of the app, how easy the app is to navigate, to load these things up. We're going to test that and see how complicated those are. And then obviously the price of the cameras, which we talked about, and the data plans. You know, how expensive the data plans are and how those work. But again, those other things to me are certainly important, but for a camera that really will stand out and have a longer distance to take the pictures, has, you know, real good cellular coverage, and then the trigger speed is really good. If there's one of these that stands out way above the other ones, that's what we want to find out, and then you can determine, you know, for yourself if the money is worth it. You know, we aren't sponsored by a single product company. You know, we buy all of our own equipment so we can be non-biased in these reviews and these tests, because we really want to know. It's stuff that we want to know, and we're not just going to take guys' words for it. We're going to test the stuff out and see what it does. So we're going to dive into this today and get all of these apps loaded on our phones and then start this test. So excited about this, and it's going to be pretty in-depth and be probably a pretty long video, but I think it's important and something that we're excited to test out. Okay, we got the camera's set up on the apps and all configured and ready to go. The Spartan, they all of them were a little bit complicated, but you know, you just kind of follow the directions step by step and figured it out. They, you know, basically the same technical difficulties, but we got them all figured out, and they were fairly self-explanatory, except for this Moultrie. I had to actually call the people. We troubleshot it. It may just be a lemon camera, but I never could get service and never could get the server to light up. And it just, I don't know, this camera just doesn't feel right. It just seems to me, Moultrie makes a great regular cam. I've used them a lot, but this cellular cam, it just feels cheap, and there's where the buttons are and how it turns on and turns off and closes. It's just, to me, it's not like the Moultries I've had in the past. Never could get it to work, so we are going to pull this one from the test. But because frankly we couldn't get it to work, couldn't get the app to work. We called them, talked to them. They were very friendly, and they were helpful when I was trying to set the new passcode up. But all in all, not impressed with the Moultrie. So we'll be running the Spartan, the Tactacam, and the Exodus. So the next thing is getting these things set up and starting to take some pictures. All right, guys, continuing on with our cell cam test. We've got the Exodus, the Tactacam, and the Spartan. And what we've done is we've got distances set up at 5, 20, what's the next one? 40 and 60 feet away from this spot. And we mark the location here with a piece of tape. So each camera is gonna go in the exact same spot. So that's how we're gonna set every camera up. And then what this is a transmission test. We're in the swamp in a typical food plot, and we're hovering between 1 and 2 LTE bars. And what I've got is another guy back at our office. He's got full Wi-Fi and full phone service. And I'm gonna be talking to him on this phone. And when we trigger these cameras at each distance, I'm gonna tell him go, and he's gonna set a stopwatch. Right when we get to the middle of the screen, he's gonna start a stopwatch, and when he gets the picture, he's gonna notate the time. Each camera is set on 8 megapixels for the quality of the photo, 2-shot burst, and 30-second delay. That's how we have each camera set up. And so that's the plan for the transmission. How long is it going to take with this type service? You know, it's not full bars, it's hovering between 1 and 2 LTE, checked it on the cell phone, and then we'll report back how each camera does at each interval. And then the next test, we're going to do the daylight, the distance test, and the picture quality. We'll do that all back at the office. But we wanted to get, for this transmission test, which is one of the most important things, we wanted to do that in an area where we didn't have great cell coverage, so we can see which one performs the best. All right, guys, we're 90% concluded the cell cam test. What we've got left to do is test the battery life and how they do actually out in the elements. We're going to go set them up on, I've got 3 feeders running in the swamp that some hogs and deer are coming into, so we're going to go set them up in the swamp and let them run until the batteries die, see how many pictures they get, and see how they do in the elements. You know, when they get rained on, dew in the morning, sun coming in, you know, we'll test all that and let you know how they perform there. But just to recap how we did the test, the first test we wanted to do was the transmission time, how fast they would transmit the picture. So I had my son stay here in the office with good Wi-Fi, good cell phone coverage. Kevin and I went down in the swamp and went to an area of the farm where we had 1 to 2 bars of LTE coverage, and we set them all up equally, and we did them at different distances. And I guess we'll just put in the text how far the distances were, because I can't remember. It was like 5 out to 60 feet. And what we did is we walked in front of them, and then we drove a 4-wheeler 4 miles an hour exactly at each one of those distances. And that's how we tested the transmission. And then early this morning, I tested them in the dark. Again, I don't remember the distances. Let's see, maybe I do. 20 feet, 50 feet, 70 feet, and 90 feet to see how they would do at night, right at daylight, you know, when it's transitioning. And then we also obviously did them in the daylight to see how they would do. What we were testing for is reliability, meaning it triggered, it did the 2-shot burst, all the cameras were set up exactly the same. The photo quality for night, day, and right at daylight. And then the trigger speed obviously is important. The transmission of the photos, how quickly and do they send all the photos, that's important. And then the range, how far out will they actually take a picture. And then again, we're going to conclude with battery life and how they perform in the elements actually out in the field. And that we'll have to bring to you a little bit later because it's probably going to take a month or so before the batteries will die. You know, I guess we can go ahead and talk about now, you know, the results, if you will. Reliability, and what I mean by reliability is 2-shot burst, would take 2 pictures, would send 2 pictures. The Spartan won that pretty much hands down. It took every single picture in our test and it transmitted every single picture. Only one picture at the 5-foot four-wheeler at 4 miles an hour. It took the picture, but it did not get the four-wheeler actually in it. The other 2 missed, you know, a few pictures. They didn't transmit it or they didn't get them. So the reliability as far as taking the picture and sending the picture, the Spartan won that. Photo quality, that was pretty much a tie between the Spartan and, believe it or not, the Tactacam. Really good photo quality at night and during the daylight. The Tactacam actually has a setting that you can do minimum blur or distance, so that was pretty unique. Trigger speed, Exodus won that one hands down, wasn't even close. Just about every first image that came into the Exodus was whatever side of the camera the object was coming into, it triggered immediately. These 2 triggered more when the object was in front, right in the middle, which I guess you could argue that it would be better to have the image right in front of the camera as opposed to, you know, just the antlers, if you will. But man, as far as trigger speed, the Exodus was the fastest. Transmission, getting the pictures to the phone, Exodus won that one, followed closely by the Spartan. I will say the Exodus missed a couple of the 2-shot bursts. I think 2 of them, the 5-foot and then the 60-footer. It missed that one on the four-wheeler, so it didn't transmit those, but it did have the fastest transmission time, and I mean, it was as low, let me look back here, it was as low, on the walking test, 36.6 seconds, on the four-wheeler test, 39.9 seconds, so I mean, it was flying, I mean, you know, half a second, or excuse me, half a minute, it would have the pictures to you. The other ones weren't bad. You know, the Tactacam was 38 seconds all the way up to 54 seconds, and the Spartan was real close, 31 up to 44 seconds. So all of them were under a minute, and that's pretty impressive. The technology has come a long way in these cameras. So that was the transmission. Range, Tactacam and the Spartan were exactly the same. We tested them at 70. They both hit at 70 in daylight. And then we tried them at 90 feet, and neither one of them hit at 90, so we split the difference, and both of them hit at 80. 2 shots, 2-shot burst, and sent them both. That was in daylight. At night, we did find it was a little bit less than that. It was down in the 70 foot range. But that, I mean, 80 feet's a long way. You know, normally I set my cameras up so I'm looking at maybe 30, 40 feet out, and this is will go almost double. So that's a huge point to me. Let's see. I guess we can get into the pricing now. I think we touched on that a little bit at the beginning of the test, but let's just revisit that one more time. The Exodus comes in at around $330 or $360. We'll post that in the video. And their plan is $15 a month, or the one I selected was $15 a month, 250 megabytes, and that equates to about 5,000 pictures. The Spartan also went with the $15 a month plan. That gives you 500 megabytes and about 10,000 pictures. These cameras are expensive. This Ghost camera comes in around $400, $420. So by far the most expensive. And then the Tactacam is the best price point at $130 to $150. They have unlimited pictures, 13 bucks a month. This little camera, I mean, you can basically have 2, if not 3 of these for the cost of 1 of these. There were a few little funky things with the Tactacam. The settings you do on your phone in the app, you don't actually do them on the camera. These two you set up within the actual camera, and then you can adjust in your app. But this one, for some reason, was flipping back to default settings, and I had them all set on 2-shot burst. And for some reason, this one would keep, well, it did it twice. It would kick back to the default setting of 1-shot burst. And I don't know if every time you cut the camera on and off, you have to redo that. Maybe that is the case. Maybe I just need to read more about that. But that's one thing that we noticed. It did miss a few pictures. The Exodus did miss a few too, but the Tactacam missed a few more. And the Spartan was by far the most reliable as far as taking the pictures and sending the pictures. So overall, 3 really good cameras. I don't know that you could go wrong with any of them. If money is no object, probably go with the Spartans. Budget, this is a dang good camera. Really impressed with the range and the quality of the photos. And then, the Exodus trigger speed and actually getting the pictures to you, man, it shined there. So 3 really good cameras, and guys, you guys make your own decisions what you're going to go with. We'll get back to you. We're going to dump them out in the field now and let them soak for about a month and take a whole bunch of pictures, and we'll report that back. But man, I learned a lot doing this test. Hope this is helpful. Any questions, comments, let us know, and look forward to the next one. Thanks, guys.